About a year and a half ago, I made a video all about PlayStation VR games worth buying, and that video did really well. It got over 1 million views, and a lot of people told me to make another one. So I figured, what better time to do it than over a year later when no one really even cares about PlayStation VR anymore. Also, this clearly isn't plugged in or turned on, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put it down there. Alright, let's freaking go! Disclaimer going into this video. I really do enjoy VR games, but I get VR motion sick pretty easily. But there has honestly been so many cool games released on the VR over the last year, I decided to dive back in once more and see what this clunky headset has to offer. And I found some legit brilliant games for this video, and none of them made me feel sick. So I am very excited to talk about something non-Nintendo for once. And whether you enjoy VR or not, I hope you still have a good time in this video. Smash like and headset hair flip all over that subscribe button. I almost lost it. So here are just some of the games I tried for this video, and one that definitely made the cut: Tetris Effect. Tetris Effect is both a game and an experience. It's truly one of the hardest VR games to explain or review, because it's really hard to bring someone into a VR world with you with just words. It's something you just need to experience for yourself to fully understand what it's like. And that goes for every game on this list, but honestly, it's the most true with Tetris VR. Because watching someone play this game is borderline boring. Even showing gameplay here as I talk, it's just going to look like basic Tetris. I mean, you can't even hear the sounds that accompany the game, and that's a huge part of the experience in Tetris Effect. Every move you make while you play, every turn of a piece, every placement, every cleared line is accompanied by a sound or a music note that seamlessly blends in with the soundtrack of the level. Not only adding to the composition of the song, but improving on it and shaping it by how you play the game. It evokes such a strong emotional reaction, almost as if you are the conductor of this Tetris orchestra guiding the music with your playstyle. Couple that with the intense visuals around you that also morph and react to your every move, and maybe you can start to understand what I mean by this game being an experience. Tetris has seen so many variations throughout the years, and other than Tetris Effect's zone ability, allowing you to freeze time momentarily as you rack up big points by clearing lines, the actual gameplay here is as basic Tetris as Tetris gets. And yet this is by far my favorite Tetris game. It's Tetris the way it's always been, and yet at the same time, it's the best it's ever been. Although Tetris 99 is still pretty freaking great. Okay, Pixel Ripped. I don't think this one has a physical release, but it really needs to because it's one of my favorites. So I took some time off playing VR since my last video, and Pixel Ripped was the reason I got back into it. The game was just so freaking cool. It gave me the drive to seek out other cool VR games I might have missed during my time off. There is so much going on in this game, I'm not even sure where to begin. I guess to start with, it's a game within another game? Kind of. It's mind-bending either way. Pixel Ripped's first layer is an old-school retro 8-bit style game that plays super similar to NES Mega Man's. Actually, this part is a crazy good game on its own right, borrowing the rings mechanic from Sonic. But then we find out that this 8-bit game world is in trouble, and they need the help of the player to fix it. The player, however, it isn't you, at least not yet. The next layer of Pixel Ripped is the real-life player. She is playing a Game Boy clone console of sorts in class. And what game is she playing? Pixel Ripped, the 8-bit Mega Man game we were introduced to earlier. And now you play as her, playing Pixel Ripped. You following along? In this first real-life level, you need to avoid being caught by the teacher. Using a spit tube, you can distract her by spitting wads of paper at different objects in the room. Each object you hit will do something different but equally crazy within the classroom, and you need to finish the level in Pixel Ripped without being caught. And this creates so much mayhem as you frantically whip your head around looking for new ways to distract the teacher as you try to beat the already pretty challenging Mega Man clone in your hands. I realize it's a GameCube controller. I left my PlayStation controller downstairs and I'm lazy. So I don't need your attitude right now. It is so good and I love it. This part of the game had me hooked, but it honestly only gets cooler from here. The next level of gameplay is when these worlds merge. The world of Pixel Ripped explodes out of the Game Boy and suddenly you need to guide the hero around the real world. At times even having to protect your fellow students from 8-bit attacks. There are more cool things that happen throughout this adventure and I don't want to ruin all of the secrets, but the game is a pretty hard challenge overall and just a ton of fun. And it is just pumped with so much 90s nostalgia that even as a retro gamer, it's hard not to love this futuristic thrill ride. Blood and Truth is a technological standout game on the list. And I practiced saying technological like 3 times before I said that line, and I still almost screwed it up. It aimed to be the first full single-player story-driven action-adventure game for VR, which is a pretty ambitious undertaking when you're breaking new ground. But it's a risk I'm glad they took because they ended up making a really cool game. In this game, you take up the role of a former Special Forces soldier who must save his family. Think like the story of an action movie like Taken, but spliced in with a game kind of like Uncharted, I guess. Ultimately, I would say they succeeded in what they set out to do. I love the game. It was an action-packed roller coaster ride from start to finish with some crazy cool blockbuster magic moments like running through a collapsing building and jumping out of the window last second, or intense car chase scenes that have you blowing away anyone trying to keep up with you. The action is done so well. You have an ammo patch right on your chest, you have 2 spots for sidearms on your side, and then you have spots for 2 big guns behind you. And I have to say, nothing feels as cool as pulling that shotgun from behind your back and just blasting away at enemies. Or you could be like the Reaper in Overwatch and dual wield shotguns, or have any combination of any weapons you find throughout the match and just be all mixing and matching them like crazy. It is really good. The only real downside is the hardware limitations of the PlayStation VR because these Move controllers don't have analog sticks. So moving around the game, you have to look where you want to go and then select it with a button, which then moves you towards that spot. And it ends up feeling a little more like an on-rail shooter rather than an action game that it's trying to replicate, but you do have the freedom of moving around the levels in any direction you want, so that does help. Even during the more Uncharted climbing over everything parts of the game, I held my lunch just fine. And it was pretty cool actually, having to climb up the side of a building, as stupid as I probably looked in real life. And even cooler still in the moments where I had to stop mid-climb, reach down to my hip, grab out a silenced pistol, and take out an enemy before putting it away and continuing. The game also added in a ton of fun VR gameplay elements throughout the adventure to really keep it fresh. It's more than just a shooty bang bang game. The attention to details in some areas really surprised me. Customizing my own weapons, even giving them a fresh coat of paint, and then getting to test them out before the next mission was a pretty clever idea. The only real negative is that at times it's probably a little too story driven, with the action feeling few and far between heavy dialogue scenes. And since all you can really do is just stand there and listen to characters talk while waving your arms around like crazy, those moments do drag on. Even with the pretty fantastic voice acting and character animations and well-written story, they did a good job with all of that, honestly. I would say that Blood and Truth is a reason to get a PlayStation VR, so if you already have one, get Blood and Truth. Okay, Trover Saves the Universe is one of my favorites, and it can be played in VR or without VR, so if you like the look of the game and you don't have VR, still consider it. From the creator of Rick and Morty. You know, I used to call myself a Rick and Morty fan, but I guess at this point I should just start calling myself a Justin Roiland fan. The creator of Rick and Morty has made a couple of VR games now, Accounting Plus, which is still one of my favorites, and the Rick and Morty VR game, of course. And now we have Trover Saves the Universe, not Trevor. It had to be Trover. So with Justin, I feel like his work always starts in the voiceover booth. Sometimes the dialogue can get real rambly, but it's worth it for those moments when the voice actor stumbles on something truly hilarious.
Feel a little bit out of the loop on this whole jingles dancing thing.
As you should, Trover. When our jingles dance, that means that we're very happy. Hold on. That.
You play as the nameless Cheropian. You're tasked with guiding Trover to save the universe. Both you and Trover are separate characters in this adventure, thrown together like a buddy cop movie. You're even able to respond to other characters on your own by nodding or shaking your head to answer the weirdest of questions thrown at you. And it's always funniest to do the opposite of what you're probably expected in the situation, so I recommend that. The game plays as a hack and slash puzzle platformer. You float around the world and control the action from above. The gameplay is pretty solid. I mean, it's basic, but most of the fun comes from the stupid tasks and goals you are given to complete. And a lot of the puzzles are pretty well thought out. Throughout the adventure, the characters will give you constant upgrades by spitting on you and then making fun of you. The enemies you face will have a few choice things to say about you and Trover as you wail on them. Actually, speaking of that, I did appreciate the option between vulgar and family-friendly dialogue at the start of the game. That way, kids can enjoy the title too, and trust me, you would not want a child to play the non-censored version, holy moly. But the core gameplay is fun for all ages, so it's a really nice addition. Anyway, this was a really cool adventure from start to finish. I really enjoyed the story it told, and even though it was handled intentionally stupid, I liked the character development of Trover. The worlds are great to explore, bright, cartoonish, beautiful environments, loads of stupid characters to meet, collectibles to find, fun gameplay mechanics, really great music. It's just a really solid adventure, and I appreciated this VR experience so much. If you decide to skip this game because you think you don't like Rick and Morty and that whole sense of humor, then I would say that you truly are missing out on one of the best VR games so far. Okay, I have mixed emotions about Firewall Zero Hour. You know, on one hand, it's by far the best shooter game I've played in VR, hands down. And on the other hand, it's all online, and literally shotgun blasting another real-life human in the face is both awesome and strange feeling. The game reminds me of Counter-Strike, the mode I played anyway. It was 4v4 player versus player matches where one team defends a laptop and the other team tries to hack it, killing each other in the process, of course. It's just so strange. It feels like military training. I have played so many gun games in VR at this point, killing countless faceless enemies in Superhot, blasting away British spies in Blood and Truth. It's just so different working with a team of real people, covering each other, watching them go down to the hands of the enemy, and then trying to fire that winning bullet. I wasn't made for the army, so my own weirdness aside, it is a really fantastic game. It plays brilliantly. It feels weird to say the controls are super tight because you are the controls, but I've never felt like I've had so much control over what I was doing. The aiming felt like spot on. And it's the first VR game I've played that has you freely moving around, walking around the maps, and it didn't make me want to vomit, so that was impressive. I'm honestly not sure why, but I can play this game for hours without feeling motion sick at all. This game was supposed to be $20, but the GameStop I went to didn't have it loose. They only had it with this monstrosity that came with the gun. I felt like the gun was going to be a gimmick that I didn't need, but I also didn't need to drive around to a bunch of other GameStops trying to find the game loose, so thank you Patreons, I decided to splurge, and I'm really, really glad I did. For starters, you know how I was complaining earlier about the move sticks not having analog? Yeah, that's not an issue with this thing. I got an analog here and here. And